Have you ever wondered about just what and where the gates of hell are? Are they down where the flames are, right there, or where? I'm talking about the gates Jesus spoke of in Matthew 16. God showed me in dreams a bunch of things about them. And in this second video, I'm revealing the details. For the past couple of decades, I've dedicated myself to making sense of dreams, so it might not surprise you that God gave me some revelation about how the gates of hell, which will not prevail against the church, apply to us. If you haven't watched The Gates of Hell, I think you'll find that video helpful. But let me move on here. Christian theologians, by the way, interpret the gates of hell as a metaphorical expression suggesting that the forces of evil and death will not overpower the church. These so-called gates signify the enduring strength and resilience of the Christian faith, that the body of Christ will withstand attacks of evil against the church and those within it. The phrase encompasses the ongoing spiritual battle between good and evil. First pastor that my husband and I had after we got married would always say the angelic conflict. Now, what I have to share with you today is not some sort of apostasy. There's no new doctrine here, just an understanding of how, where, and when these gates can manifest and operate in our lives. So I'm not talking about after death. I'm talking about right here and now in our lives. And remember, individuals as well as groups of individuals leading or involved in a church or ministry may experience these gates of hell. So let's get to more detail on these. There are 5, but I move pretty quickly, I think, on them. Number 1, the gates of hell are mobile. They move from place to place as deployed by hell. They move specifically to the intersections in our lives, the crossroads, if you will, places where decisions are made, places where turns are made, where shifts happen, where opportunities open up, places where promotion is imminent. So number 2, the gates of hell are deployed by Satan and his dark forces to block individuals from finding success at these intersections. That means you can expect the gates of hell to come against you personally. What I was shown in my dreams from a heavenly perspective was a set of stairs, like what you might see outside the front of a home. Generally 5 to 10 steps. Now that indicates that typically when these are employed, these intersections in our lives, there are a few steps involved, right? Makes sense. One step might be perceiving that there needs to be a change. Spiritual perception, of course, involves hearing God's voice. The second step might be making the final decision to actually move forward, making this change. The next steps might be perceiving and deciding on the actions that will lead toward success. And the final steps might be effectively employing earthly approaches and procedures to reach the landing at the top where the door is accessible. Now, number 3, the third revelation I received is that these proverbial gates are portable, and more specifically, transportable. And like army gear and personnel, they can be packed up and moved to the battlefield that needs them the most at the time, according to Satan. And maybe that's a battlefield in your life. Maybe one right now. Notice that the term Jesus used includes the word gates. That's not random. Clearly, it speaks of entrances and exits. These specialized gates, spiritually speaking, are dispatched to entrance and exit situations in our lives, especially when a spiritual or ministry upgrade is at stake as we discover and endeavor to possess the promised lands in our lives, to move into a season of increased blessing, restoration, deliverance, or promotion. And these don't have to be spiritual situations. It can be a job, because our lives all tie together, right? And just as likely, these gates of hell are deployed to situations where we're meant to exit something, where we're on our way to where we belong, or leaving where we don't belong or no longer belong. I know, you know, that these exit situations can be dicey. It's not always easy to leave. Generally, there are people involved, people who don't want us to go, people we care about, or people who can potentially do us harm if we cross them. Now, a lot of times I've found that these exits in our lives come before or just prior to the entrances we're intended to penetrate. But sometimes they happen, months apart or years apart, or whatever. But they can be very close to each other as well. Let's go to number 4. What do the gates of hell themselves look like? What kind of opposition can we expect when the gates of hell stand between us and an exit or entrance? Well, we're talking about formidable obstruction to block our forward progress. So the 4th revelation I received is associated with the materials involved in the gates. And each time, God showed me that the gates of hell were behind the obstacles I kept battling in real life. Each time that happened, there were 2 types of these gates in the dreams. One type just inside the exits, and a slightly different type just outside the entrances. Now, the ones outside always consisted of a wider set of stairs and more steps, indicating getting into something new generally requires more of a progress, more activities than exiting something. And for those entrance gates, these steps always led up to a landing where there were double doors leading into a commercial building of some sort. And the doors themselves were always commercial doors made from steel or something heavy. So that indicates that the entrance is more secure than standard doors, right? And requires more muscle and pressure to open. As I said, the exit gates were similar, but considerably less steps and easier doors to open. Now the last one, number 5, and this is really the focus. This is really the thing to take note of. If what I just described was all of it, the gates wouldn't be that hard to penetrate, right? Doesn't look too scary or too strong for us. But of course, there were guards. About twice as many outside than inside, depending on where you are in the dream. And they weren't like the famous British Queen's guards guarding Buckingham Palace, all decked out, looking like they're more for show than go. No. God depicted the guards for the gates of hell as, of course, Nazis. Those uniforms and helmets in those dreams hold a heavy message. Authority, control, intimidation, death. Those kind of dreams are really scary. And you find yourself just frozen. What do I do? Dare to try to get past those guards. Dare to approach the SS. Instant death. The gates of hell, in its essence then, to summarize, are intended to intimidate us into backing up, backing down, giving up. So what do we do when we sense or have confirmed through a prophetic dream that the gates of hell have been put in place in one of our situations? Remember, the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. The forces of evil and death will not overcome it. The church will withstand the attacks of evil. And here's the thing. You are the church. You are the bride of Christ and the body of Christ. Those gates only stand in your way because you are so close to where you're called to be. It's only a few feet from you now. Maybe you've been working your way for a long time. But when you see these Nazis, you're only a few feet away from the entrance you've been wanting to get through, maybe for years. So what do? Don't let his tactic work on you. It's just intimidation. Press forward. You may have been given divine strategy already as to how to do it. And even though it may not look like it, you have the upper hand. You have access to powerful spiritual weapons. The devil may be like a roaring lion, seeking who he can devour. But through the work of Jesus, he's been dethroned, declawed, and detoothed. You can only lose if you stop fighting. Be encouraged to stand firm and persevere until you acquire your victory. Well, I hope that wasn't too much detail. I figured you'd want it all. And I hope you don't have those dreams of Nazis because they're terrifying. And if you've seen the movies, if you know very much about this, it strikes fear like nothing else, right? But in a way, I would want you to have a dream like that because that means you're getting somewhere. And you're getting somewhere that hell hates. And that's a good thing. So even if you're in the midst of the gates of hell in your life, you can go ahead. Don't be intimidated. Just go on and live beyond your wildest dreams.